run through the guys' presentation for the bacon conference. Matt, do you want to step up first and do your bit?
Sure. Well, I think we'll all just interject because, and then when it comes to Saturday, these guys can take over because obviously I wasn't there. Of course, we need to stand up.
You have to stand up. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I'm at uni.
Can't see you this week.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Amateur.
Okay. So yeah, Bacon Conference. Strange title. They decided to introduce a lot of bacon-themed topics in amongst all the development, which was interesting.
Too much bacon.
Too much bacon.
I got bored
Is
of
there an
the
actual
whole-
reason why they cut bacon?
No, not really.
People
Literally,
love bacon.
yeah. And
I love-
they force the speakers to talk about bacon a little bit as well.
It's like a nerd meme, innit?
Yeah, I guess.
There's lots of cat pictures as well.
Yeah,
Like
quite a few
slides
cat
and stuff.
pictures. Yeah. But in amongst all that, despite everything, we have learned of it as well. So one of the first speakers on Friday who was of use was this guy, Jan Schruter.
Sweden, I think.
And yeah, he was Jan, possibly. Sorry. So he's talking about the psychology of users, but not just that, also limitations everyone has to do with their memory, short-term memory, attention span, and how it affects the usability of your product.
We've got all the Twitter names and things as well, if you want them after.
Yeah, if you want to follow any of these people. So yeah, memory, attention, and the way people learn all have implications for the design of our product, or site rather. So your short-term memory is really limited. There have been quite a lot of studies on short-term memory, but more recent ones have proven that we can store much less in our short-term memory than we think we
Yeah,
can.
they before said 7 plus 1, whereas now the more scientific evidence come through, like it's actually less than what was originally thought.
Absolutely. He did a little test with us all where he showed us a bunch of circles and said, count these and try and memorise how many there are. Just flashed it up for a split second, really, and you couldn't do it. And he said there are ways of making it easier for people to take things in, and he showed the same amount of circles again, but he just grouped them differently, and in that same amount of time we were able to figure out that there were 16 in there. I mean, it's quite a rudimentary test, but just an example that you can easily influence the way you take in.
There was 16, and then he did 4 and 4, which
Sure.
was a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that he sort of promoted what we do already to do short-term memory, so things like inline validation. So he explained it as in when you go to a fridge, you open the fridge door and you forgot what you're going to get. It's the same as say our sign-up journey. Like they'll be doing the form in, and then like online, like a pop-up like you fill this form in wrong pops up. But obviously with inline validation, it doesn't distract, whereas the pop-up does, and you're like flustered as in like where am I, like what am I doing? It's the same with the basket and things as well. Like we've got the basket on display the whole time, so they're never gonna forget what's in. Yeah, and the things being added to the basket.
In fact,
and the tooltips as well.
That thing about the basket is important because it's so much easier for people to recognise something that they've already seen rather than to recall stuff from memory. It's a lot harder to access your long-term memory. So anything that is relevant always should be shown so that people can refer back to it. Another way of avoiding blocking someone's short-term memory is he showed us an example of a rich call-out. So it was a bit like, it was on some shopping site, yeah, Amazon possibly, and then you've got your basket. Rather than clicking that and being taken to another page that has your basket in and interacting with that, you can just hover that and you'll be able to perform the most basic actions like removing products and stuff without leaving the product page you're on, which is much less disruptive for the user. So, there might be times during our order journey that we want to modify some stuff and avoid taking people away, and that's sort of a pattern to consider. Okay, so yeah, long-term memory. If we can get people to really read and engage with the information on the page, they'll remember it a lot better than if they're just scan reading and not really engaging with stuff. And there's a few ways of doing that. Some of them probably less applicable to us, like humorous content or whatever. But so if we can make everything we write relevant, then people will engage with it more. If we know that someone has just is looking to switch provider, the content can be tailored towards are you getting slow speeds or problems maybe, that so they might be more invested in reading that and remembering it.
I'm going to start writing shocking content.
Shocking content, yeah, absolutely.
Mind you, some people have said we've done that for years.
You're emotional, maybe.
Yeah. But also, I don't know whether I've put this in the presentation, but every bit of content that you have that isn't relevant or the most important thing that you're trying to communicate takes away from that content. There's only so much we can take in and give our attention to, and the more that's in there. I mean, this is sort of stuff that we already know to some extent, but it's worth having this sort of validated really, and having someone up there saying it and presenting this just reinforces that.
So it's about showing the key information, not overdoing it, but grouping that information into the right areas, isn't it? So you can remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there can be a tendency to want to tell people everything in one go.
Yeah.
But attention is a limited resource, and one of the ways that you showed you can get around this and still deliver a lot of information but have people take it in is to use progressive disclosure, whereby information is only shown as it becomes relevant. So I think we do that quite well with the sign-up journey as we go through. We're not asking everything up front. There are other sort of techniques that at the moment we don't necessarily use, but are worth considering. An example would be in games. A lot of sort of tablet or mobile games now, you pick up the game, there aren't any instructions, there's no manual, you jump straight into the game and it just starts playing, and it basically shows you the first basic concept, and then it'll pop up and go, oh, it looks like you're losing, do this for a nitro boost. So, okay, fine, and then you've learnt that, and just as you need to know stuff, we bring that information in, and there might be ways that we can apply that in our journeys as well. When people start, as soon as people do anything, we learn about what they might be trying to do or what they need to do, get information from them, and then disclose more information. Okay, he also mentioned a few people that's worth looking into, and a couple of books as well that are worth reading. Whether there are any samples online, I've not had a chance to look yet, but I remember you, Ian, and you having a chat with Spence about this guy, weren't you? I think,
yeah, Spence doesn't like him, and I'm deeply in love with him. Typically, so.
Which one?
Jacob Nielsen.
Basically, made some usability rules 20 years ago, and they still stand.
Well, one of the problems people have with him, I think, and I'm not sure if Spence agrees, is that he made rules 20 years ago, and then he changed his mind, because that's what people do, but people forgot to ask him. So, like, for example, the user scroll, famously he said, users don't scroll, put everything above the fold, and then later he changed it to, of course, users scroll, there's no fold, but of course people stick to his first comment rather than his later one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, take everything, don't take everything as gold, but yeah, he is a very interesting guy.
Take everything with a pinch of bacon salt.
Exactly. I read a couple of stuff that he posted a bit more recently, and one of the things is that anything you can learn about usability, that information holds its value a lot better, because the way people use things doesn't change as frequently as you think it would. And a lot of stuff that is applicable will be applicable for a long time.
Although unfortunately that one example I gave is an example
of something
people,
that's changed,
No.
So yeah, anyway, I can send these around if anyone's interested in looking at those later. Okay. So the next person was talking about social coding. Yeah.
Where did she work for again?
Offhand, I can't remember where it was she worked, but
Yeah,
in New York.
I was surprised how many people from America came out to speak at the conference. Like,
More Americans than English.
Yeah.
Well, pretty much all Americans.
And I think we have learned that they have very little grasp of our culture. They did try to make a lot of cultural jokes about the difference between America and England, and
freedom.
First guy was a bit funny.
silence.
How to get a crowd on your side.
Exactly, yeah.
Any tea jokes?
Any what tea jokes? I don't know. There was something about the metric system, and he was like, "Oh, and you guys measure some stuff in metric and some stuff in imperial. Like you're driving along and you're all like kilometers per hour." Like, no. Good start.
You got it wrong.
Yeah.
Was there any jokes about how on the flight over the food was of a inconveniently small size?
Unfortunately not, but yeah, they had a go. Bless. Yeah, do you
Yeah, so this woman talked mostly about how she's set up some groups in America for basically just geeks to get together and be geeks. But from that, there's so many like advantages of there's no agenda, so they can just go and do what they love, which means they're going to learn a lot better than if they're doing it for someone else. But also how there's like methods of setting them up locally and ways of promoting, even if it's just getting some people together in Starbucks and just writing some stuff just because that's what you want to do. But I can't remember exactly.
I suppose it's more inspiring for us to get involved with like groups and things outside of work.
So it's like geek clubs and
Yeah,
much.
that kind of thing. I think one of the things that was good about that is she raised a couple of sort of benefits to doing that I hadn't previously considered, and that's when you're going, you're not just there to sort of get help from other people with what you're doing, but when you can help other people out, I think it sort of builds your confidence a bit in what you're doing, and which is, I think, quite a useful thing. But also, not only that, but when you're exposed to groups outside of like your working group, you'll learn things that you wouldn't have learned from each other as well, and I think it helps us to keep a sort of broader perspective or sort of bigger picture and that kind of thing. So
She's looking at bringing it into England as well. Just looking for people that want to post things.
But
I also linked to one we saw. There was like a 5-minute thing for people to do a 5-minute presentation at the end, and one of them was they had a little drone thing with 4 fans on, and they could program it on Node. So we made it dance to dubstep on stage, which was quite cool. But it started from just a bunch of people getting together and just writing code for the fun of it, that's what it evolved into. So it's a good way to learn.
It went disastrously wrong as well because it kept flying off.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny because he had 5 minutes to present and he spent 6 minutes trying to catch it.
Whoops. Just before we change slides, I had a quick look. Couldn't find any concrete information on stuff like this happening already in Sheffield, but if anyone knows of anything or comes across anything, it's something I'd be interested in.
Is that digital barman?
Yes.
Ian's mate.
I was about to pimp that.
Yeah.
Or set one up.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a
I guess
possibility.
this is what it's all about.
There's a WordPress thing me and Ian goes, well, Ian mostly,
Set your
which is
own one.
monthly, which is, I guess, is a similar principle.
But you probably know more about it. What is it? The May Do one?
Yeah, July the 6th. It's free. More details coming soon. I'm not sure. I've never actually been to one of these things where people actually like a hack day, as they call them. But it's probably worth checking out.
It sounds like something that'd be a bit of fun, even if we never end up doing it again. But if we
Sheffield.
find one, then
Barnsley.
That place we went to.
yeah, and if not, like Nick says, start our own. Never know.
If you start small, I mean, maybe like you just said, just go to Starbucks and think of something that you want to do. And,
Even if it's a bunch of us, just
You
thinking,
could even do
what should we do
Plusnet
for a laugh?
ones
Yeah.
in the boardroom or something.
Yeah.
It's almost like
In here.
the hothouse sort of thing, isn't it? You're sort of taking yourself out of the environment. If you can take yourself out of the work environment and think, right, what do we want to do?
Yeah. Well, Dan had a while a bit back for that interactive video thing, and I mean, we didn't go anywhere with it, but it would be nice to just do something like that, work on something that's a bit of fun, something we wouldn't get a chance to do within work. Maybe beneficial to work, maybe just a learning exercise and a bit of a laugh, who knows?
I remember Pete saying they used to have something here called like Thursday Club or something,
That's right, we did.
where they used to get together and try and do something a bit different.
Yeah.
Like everyone, well, people that wanted to just work on something a bit
I think the
different.
key thing, certainly from my perspective, is that if you're going to get any benefit out of it, it needs to be something that you're sort of passionate about rather than, we were just doing it specifically for work. You actually want to do it to get together and, maybe have a bit of a laugh and whatever, but if you get some sort of end result out of it, well then you've achieved your goal, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
Rather than, if you can be necessarily doing it for work and then it just gets shelved and it's a kind of waste of your time. It's something you've done, actually, but then you can apply it to
There's
work.
sort of just standalone kind of, yeah.
Great, you tick 2 boxes.
Yeah, good example there. And of course, like this isn't official, but if you picked a suitable charity and worked on that with colleagues, not in work time, but that might reflect well on the company, and you may find that goes down rather well.
Agreed.
Plus, that sort of situation often gives you more flexibility to try something new, do something a bit more imaginative.
We were going to be involved with the Plusnet charity to do a website. It was free, but they decided that they didn't want a website.
Nice.
I suppose we should just do it anyway. I think they went with the Plusnet news at the end. But might still make it in the future.
So, for example, I don't know, Roundabout is one we have. I mean, what's their website like? I'm guessing because they're a charity, it's shit.
It's not great.
No.
It does the job, though, I guess.
I don't know, but is the scope talking to that?
I think it's quite new, isn't it? Because it's not great, but it's not ugly.
Could you create an app or something like that for donating, or I don't know, or just thinking things that perhaps you might be able to do. I mean, if it does tie into our own charity, then obviously you're gonna, it's gonna look pretty good on you, really. And obviously it's something usable for the business as well. So,
if people are interested in that, maybe we could have another little meeting to just throw some initial ideas out there of what we could do, what it could be for, and
I mean, it's always good for if you've gone to something like this to take something away from it, something tangible, rather than say we've seen these guys speak and they were great. But actually, they inspired me to actually go and do something. I think that's far more powerful, and then you've actually physically gone off and created something, whether it be a new group or a tangible product or whatever. I think that's great. So, yeah, if you can, go for it. It's yours to do with what you want, really.
Well, the next guy who spoke was called John Sheehan, and it was largely about APIs, but also about a website called If This Then That. It actually turns out Tom did a thesis on it, so I'll just hand over to him.
I found this guy quite interesting because his actual company is what I wrote like an essay on. So, well, I thought it was an essay, it's actually my exam. So, because I tweeted him saying I'd wrote like an essay on it and it said send it in. But obviously, it's a written exam, so I can't. So If This and That is pretty much an API where companies like Dropbox, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you choose one of their APIs and then you choose like, A and B, and you choose B. So the one I use is every time I take a picture on Instagram, so it's if this, I take a picture on Instagram, then that is saved to Dropbox. So every time I take a picture, it saves the actual image file to my Dropbox with like the filters and things on. But there's 60 different ones, and it's just all like that, really.
Yeah, people make recipes up of different things, and you can then share these.
That's all gone in.
I think that's it with him. But one thing he said is the most requested feature, the thing that people want to use, all this automation tools that can do all these crazy powerful things. People just want to see what's new stuff. Oh, have new photos been posted? New this, new that. All the kind of things that we get on our phone, like notifications that we take for granted. That's what people want to use that app for. And I think if that demonstrates anything that we can apply, is that when things change, people want to see what that is. Whether it's something in their account, whatever it is, people need to be notified of stuff. And he said that it was over 90% of the usage on the whole site was for notifications, which I thought was quite surprising, really.
It's almost loosely related to you raise a problem in workplace or a ticket on someone's account and then they get an email because of it. It's similar to that, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we do kind of do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything people want us to be notified of, really. Okay, so the next one looked like it might not really be relevant at all to what we were doing, but
it was anyway.
It was a sort of different kind of angle, really.
Yeah.
She had different clips of films where there's some sort of group interaction going on. I think there was Ocean's 11, and where they're discussing a plan, and then Avengers Assemble and various things like that. And just using them as an example of interaction, and basically what she was saying is although we can focus our time getting better at coding, learning all these kind of things, every day we work in a team, we work with other people, and there's other kind of skills that we need to develop other than just coding, and that's soft skills, being able to work well with other people. And one thing she said she saw a lot of is that everyone has their own approach, and when things get sort of tense and it's a stressful environment, you can kind of think, like, I know this, why doesn't other people know this, and try and sort of apply your approach to other people, get them to do things the way you do, whereas we all work differently. Some people prefer to go away and consider a problem, some people prefer to dive in, try and fix it, figure it out. Everyone has a different way, and no one way is right or wrong. And that was kind of one example where it's easy to fall down, and it's just something that we should all bear in mind, that we can improve these things and see it as something that we can improve as a skill, not just design.
Quite relevant as well in the last project we did, where two people disagree, and then they both had a different way of doing it, so you got to a point where it's just not compatible. But she went on to say about how you can take a step away from that, and then if you both talk about it and think about it and plan out the different routes and methods of doing it, then you're going to get a better conclusion than just both trying to do it your own separate way.
And get someone external in. If there's two people that can't agree, then get someone external in, and then just explain to them each story, and then
just to mediate. So that was pretty good. She also had to voice over all of the film clips because the sound stopped working on her laptop, which was hilarious.
Did you do like accents?
Yeah, kind of, pretty much, and sound effects. It was
fun.
great. In fact, when the sound came back on towards the end of the presentation, we were all a bit disappointed.
There's one moment where there's this woman on the screen and she said something like, you could read her lips, and she said the words like exact lip sync.
Yeah, it was pretty good, next guy, Christian Hellman, is from Mozilla. He's one of their evangelists who tromps around the world, basically, telling people how awesome web
He's
standards
the
are.
one with the big ginger name.
Yeah,
That's
he writes
the
in magazines about smash.
I like it.
It is, yeah, pretty good.
Your idol.
So following on from what Tom said about people not being able to agree on stuff, one of his quotes I thought was pretty good. Arguing with a developer is like wrestling with a pig in mud. After a couple of hours, you just realise he likes it. And that's
No way is that true.
No? Don't think so? I think sometimes we can get a bit caught up in I'm right, you're wrong, or this is more efficient than that, this technique is better than that, and sometimes there comes a point where you need to step back and get some perspective and think, why are we actually doing this? Someone might be right. I think the example he gave is, I don't know, a couple of people developing a plugin and someone comes up with something and says, hey, we'd like to add this. Someone else says, hang on, that's fine, but if we're going to process 300,000 lines of code, then this is going to be more efficient. And you have to think, well, okay, you've proven on this grand scale that you might be right in some aspects, but just get some perspective and step back. So, yeah, that's that really. Again, this was mainly targeted at people developing plugins, but I think it also applies just as well to choosing plugins, and we do use plugins on the site. The trend at the moment with like jQuery plugins is to be like, hey, this supports every single browser, it does this, it does that. And every time you add support for stuff or cover up patches in software, you are adding bloat and adding extra stuff. And it might be that this carousel plugin does loads of millions of things we don't need, like vertical scrolling and zooming in and transitions we don't want. And his advice was actually aiming at people building a plugin. So if you're building a plugin and you're bolting in features that might not be used, do them as a separate extension. But likewise, we can look for people that are conscientiously developing stuff where they're not just parceling everything in and they allow you to add stuff on. I think it shows a good approach to building a plugin, and it's an indicator that it's something that's going to be well looked after.
Did he mention what do you do when that stops?
What, you mean like the countdown clock? Yeah. Something like that. Well, he did mention about sort of the health of the development of a project. Like, you can look and see, first of all, are people updating it regularly? And then another thing is, are people trying to help but not being included? Like, are there 100 pull requests for things people have fixed, and the developer who's managing the project isn't pulling it in? And these are all things to avoid. If people are working on it actively and putting stuff out as a pull request, and the developer's pulling it in, great, awesome. And we should try and keep things going. Like, if we find a bug and fix it, contribute, make a pull request, put it back to the plugin developer, and keep the plugins going. If everyone supports the plugins that we're using, then it will extend the life of that plugin. Is when things start to dry up and people stop contributing, that plugins die, and then you're left with something you can't support properly. So just another word of warning on all singing, all dancing, all bells and whistles. He had this little screenshot. Thought it was quite cool. HTML9 responsive boilerstrap JS is a flexible, dependency-free, lightweight, device-agnostic, modular, baked-in component framework MVC library shoelace strap to help you kickstart your responsive CSS-based app architecture backbone kitchen sink Tweety birds. Yeah, basically, there's again the trend is to make all singing, all dancing frameworks that do everything for everyone.
You went on to say about how people often, because something's like trending, everyone jumps on it, when actually they don't need that at all. Like, but just because it's the popular tool at the minute, like, it's a perfect example. Like, we want everything, but we only need this. So, like, being quite specific for what your actual needs are.
I think fortunately, like with Falcon, I think we were quite picky and choosy about what we included, and we don't have a lot of this sort of thing going on. But again, it's nice to just have something reiterated to you to avoid that. And that being said, I heard someone mentioning Modernizer the other day. I know we originally intended to just pick a subset of the tests that run. Are we currently running everything? Or
No, we've stripped out.
I think we did that.
I don't think we have.
No, did
You
you
know
do
the
that?
one.
but it hasn't gone out yet.
Oh, right.
Oh, so it will be happening.
Next
Typical
year.
story.
Okay.
Yeah, we all know we had to do that. It's just yeah.
But we didn't. Yeah. That was fun.
I
You
think
seem to have upgraded it, by the way, Michael, before you do all your work.
oops. Want to investigate? I think it's interesting this whole like health of the gift hub, because what I've found, because I I'm obviously crap, so try and steal as much stuff as possible, is don't just pick like healthy plugins, but pick ones that sort of the people who are making it think the same way you do. So like I've done the same with like CSS frameworks. Like you get loads of different approaches. So like often loads have styles baked in, and they're really good, but they have all this style content, and I don't want that. So you pick one where it's someone who thinks, oh, I don't think styles should be included. Or if you can have people who say, oh, I think we should do everything with a minimal of markup, which is a fair opinion to have, but if your opinion doesn't match that, then don't pick it. You got to think of more than what's this actually doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it requires a bit of investigation, obviously, but
I think
it's
also
worthwhile.
you need to pick ones that have more than one like owner.
Mhm.
If one guy, fair enough, if you've got one guy that owns it and he's he's opening it up and he's accepting in patches and pull requests and what have you, but then he's eventually gonna like get a job because they're all work for the money somewhere, and then when there's like he has a massive project, there doesn't even look at it for 9 months.
Mm.
You've still got that sort of problem, sort of stuff.
Yeah. Whereas I suppose you're saying if he has opened it up and everything's there and there are more than one contributor, it's going to carry on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's definitely true. And also some people, and I guess this is all to do with like looking at the health of a GitHub project, some people will use a framework or a plugin as a means of self-promotion, which is fine, but if they're just doing that to self-promote, then often they're kind of dickheads. So they are going to abandon it at some stage.
Like when they no longer need it to promote what they're doing or whatever, when it's run its course.
Yeah.
Another thing you mentioned briefly is Adobe Brackets. So it's an editor, just like Sublime, etc. It's completely open source, and it's actually written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Want to go to Tyler?
Adobe.
Well, actually, I need to correct this. It's just called Brackets because although they're associated with it and they started it, they have made it open source and basically said they're not going to like take this on as a product. It's there for the community to develop. So it's only loosely associated with them. It almost seems like an apology for Dreamweaver, really, but there you go. So if you can, write HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then you can actually extend and develop the editor itself. And they on GitHub they'll tag sort of easy bug fixes as beginner bugs or starter bugs or something like that, so that you can get started extending it, jump in, write some JavaScript as an extension or fix a problem, whatever it is, and get your work in. It seems pretty powerful. I mean, I know we're all pretty set in Sublime. I'm not expecting people to move over, but if somebody fancies like a challenge or an exercise or something to do, it's good to.
In Sublime written in HTML, CSS, and JS.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I think it's themed in it.
I think
Well,
it's
I think
compiled down to Java, but the actual source code is.
And all the extensions like Python and crap like that.
You can do it. Well, I think it accepts anything, doesn't it?
I had a quick look at adding an extension, and basically it is just a JavaScript file, and there's some documentation on it, and didn't do anything fancy. I just managed to get something appear in one of the drop-down menus and print "Hello World,"
Yeah.
But
Because I think what you do is you pipe out a command to the terminal, which is how you can do it in anything. So I think it is largely just JavaScript.
But anyway, it's an interesting project, and if you fancy tinkering with something, it's worth having a look at.
It doesn't cost 60 quid.
It doesn't cost, yeah, exactly.
Or 6,000.
So yeah, this was just literally a tick. Basically, if you're using a lot of animations, they might be running in the background, running when no one can actually see them, and using up lots of resources, slowing things down. And this, whatever that is a way of stopping that happening. I didn't really look into it. It was just a passing comment, really. But
Have you implemented that in your animations, Luke?
Was that not jQuery animations?
no, it's to do with.
Because he said to stay away from. Was he the guy from Google? Yeah, so he said to stay away from jQuery animations because they run in a weird way or something. But whereas the CSS animations, they can access the hardware as well, so you can do a lot more, a lot better.
That's coming up, isn't it?
And then you could use features like this to detect when they start, when they stop, so there's no overhead and it's not using unnecessary resources and slowing things down.
So you're doing CSS3 animations, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you could look at implementing that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll look into it.
About 15 minutes, guys.
Sure.
We're still on day one.
Right, well, there's only 3 speakers in here, but I wasn't here for Saturday, so I'll let you guys take
Yeah,
over.
well, you just quickly go through these.
Just Greg Roller. He had an app that was pretty much you checked in like what beer you were drinking and rated it. So Luke's gonna load it up.
It was called Untapped, which is it was quite a cool app. Basically, you log in, you've got friends, you like take a photo of your beer, upload it, rate it, and then like I think it collects all the data from all the different people's beers, so you can see like what you might want to try, and then you get awards and badges for.
Sounds like Dan's new job.
Is that the badges for drinking beer?
Yeah, I think it's called Untapped. It's not a game; it's more similar to.
That's Tap Out Simpsons.
See, like, because everywhere I go, I used to have a different beer, and I had an idea like ages ago. Why didn't someone just like write something like beer award? You could document every different type of beer.
Yeah,
you
someone's already done it.
And I told loads of people.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing. Like, but
I'd get your commission because it looks like they've nicked it off you.
Oh, yeah.
It's new you lose.
I rate every pint of Carlin I drink. That's gonna be a
I think it only
massive
works if it's
time
different beers.
You should do it.
I think there's a you remember Foursquare and
Yeah, it's similar to Foursquare. I
what
think.
was the other one?
Yeah,
Like
links.
Goala. They had a battle where they were basically doing the same thing, and these guys have got the same because in where I drink they've started advertising another app that's just like this,
Right. Okay.
and I guess this guy's promoting himself, trying to get his app win, but
Yeah, pretty
usually
much.
there's only one
Where
victim.
do you drink where you see adverts for apps?
The Rutland and the that Thornbridge one. Alan
Sounds a bit
Fletcher House.
serious, this.
It is. This is it. It's big business. This.
I think they've got 600,000 users and there's only 2 of them. So they're
Well, it's a
trying to
good
figure
way
it
if you're
out.
like
Very
a
good.
real ale house and you're making
Just
like
apps.
Skellam Island Brewery, like
Just a
virtual girls
Yeah, exactly.
He also went on to say about how it was all written in HTML5 and they used phone gap to port it into iPhones and thingy. Which is quite
Really?
interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody would stop with it.
I think what
It seems
It's
to
just
work
easy
really
though,
well.
isn't it?
Seems to work really well.
a good point that he brought up was about the feedback from customers. 'Cause obviously, there's only 2 of them doing it. They've got 600,000 people throwing opinions and like slating it or loving it, and basically just to filter out what people think they need and what they actually would benefit from. So like not taking feedback at face value. So not directly, because they might ask for something, but something else might solve that, but in a much better way, or they may not even need it. It just yeah. This guy's business is a lot different to ours. It's more of an add-on business. So their processes are the same, apart from they didn't have deadlines, which, because we're customer facing and now we've got updates to everything, obviously, we couldn't do that. But it's interesting to see like how he works. Like somebody may request something, it's like, yeah, we'll do that, but we can't say when we're going to do it.
If we should take that approach, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it at some point. Don't worry about it.
I think some of us have taken that approach.
And the whole idea behind it was to ship it when it's right. So if you know it's going to go out and a bug's going to be raised against it, just don't release it because you feel like you need to release it.
So
Like,
the
wait
opposite of
until
what
it's
we're doing
right. Yeah. And then another good thing that they had, I think, is on the next slides. Maybe not. No. They had a week where everybody worked remotely. Is it on there? Yeah. So basically, half the business, or 70% of the business, worked from home, and they find out the communication between the in-office staff and the out-of-office staff was pretty weak. Like, they got forgotten about in meetings, or the communication just wasn't strong. So what they do is they shut down the business for a week, and they do it like every quarter or something. And like nobody goes into work, like the office is just completely shut. And they found that everyone communicated really well. They understood what it was like to work from home. Like, I'm not sure if that would work here, obviously VPNs and stuff, but
It's a method in case this never happened, and everyone will be.
I guess we're starting to do that, aren't we, at the moment? So we've proven that we can work as a business. You know, if we do have a disaster scenario or a bad weather scenario, we can work from home. And obviously it is a little bit trickier for some departments, but certainly ourselves, we can certainly get on and communicate and interact as a team to get our jobs done. So I guess we are doing it already, really.
They utilise tools like Google Hangout and Campfire, which I've never heard of. And they found that they had, like, they were all in a hangout together, even though they were just like coding, but it's like they were in the same room, obviously, because they wanted to see each other. They could like share the screens and things. This is the Google guy.
You talk about so much stuff. Like
we filtered out pretty much things relevant. So a lot about animations we spoke about, which I'm going to have a look at later on. There's a tool in Chrome where you can see like how much the GPU is being used, or how much it like.
And you can see the frame rates for all the animations and the inspect out in the developer tools. Also, like key parts of when the animations stop and finish, and then repaint and stuff. It's really important to like go through all that, see where the high load times are, see where you can optimize it, and then just keep working on it through them tools to get like a much better end product.
They're showing things with the Translate Z as well, adding that in to make things smoother. They said don't just throw it in everywhere, because they explain it like when you drink some beer, it makes talking easier, but if you drink too much beer, like you start slurring your words again. So it's about learning like the limit. So when you add Translate Z, it acts like a PSD with layers in it rather than like a flat image. So then you've got lots more things working when they don't necessarily need to all be working like that. It's like if it's moving left to right, you don't need everything to be individual.
Cool. So some of these points, I guess you'll want to talk over these from your slide.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we all feel the same way. Like, it was a really good experience. It was quite inspiring getting to see people at like the top of what they do, like from all different areas rather than the same area, and also like the completely different sub areas within our area. Like, just because we do like development, there's also thousands of other areas we can go into, or just take inspiration from, like helping people through code, like helping businesses through code. And just really like being passionate about it, I guess. Like, yeah, so I think we all found it pretty inspiring. And
it's good laugh as well. Like free bacon, food, and beer. And we pretty much spoke to everyone on the night out that was in the pub.
Oh dear.
But,
you didn't tell where you worked, did you?
well, we had it like on a badge.
Oh,
God.
Yeah.
No, no pads.
we were speaking to someone from another FD one there.
Luke, did you find any women?
There was.
Oh God! Oh God!
Anyway.
Yeah, what was the female turnout? Because I've noticed it's
It was
kind of
pretty
getting
good.
better.
It was pretty impressive, really. It wasn't a great ratio, but
Well, like 20%.
Because I guess
Six-
the topics are more varied and a bit.
In fact,
yeah.
Probably about 20,
yeah, that's
20-30%.
That's reasonably healthy for more dev than everyone.
that's fine.
Interestingly, from what the guys have said as well, from like previous things we've been to, you go and speak to people afterwards and they're like, never heard of you. Obviously, a lot more people have heard of Plusnet now. So
There's a lot of customers as well.
We spoke to one guy who says, "Oh, we work at Plusnet." He's like, "Oh, I've got Plusnet broadband,"
Yeah.
which is funny.
yeah, so it opens a few more doors straight away, which is
Or
nice.
closes them.
Or closes them, depending on who you're speaking to. So, yeah.
We spoke to quite a few people at night, like
Yeah.
Mozilla, Google, and stuff and stuff.
I noticed there's more slides on the day when there wasn't drinking.
It's just
There's a
gaps
lot
in the
more-
memory there.
Yeah.
There's some really good talks on the second day, but a lot more about bacon and random stuff than.
Yeah, there's one on gardening, one on the number infinity, one on the game called Go, which is like a 4,000-year-old Go
Magician.
thingy game. Magician one about
It's
how
pretty cool though.
it was actually really good.
Matt, you said that one about cognac. So.
Oh yeah, cognac tasting. Well, we skipped that one.
Yeah,
but
really good.
I think they try and break it up so that if you start to get overloaded, you can just go and listen
Yeah.
to something that's unrelated to what you're doing.
And it's about what devs love as well. The conference was. So
Yeah, apparently they love
Have you
cognac.
figured out cognac?
yeah.
But
I'm impressed.
But aside from that kind of stuff, it was really inspiring to see a lot of people, as Luke says, at the top of their game. But not just that, that sort of are there constantly trying to stay ahead. Like I think one of the quotes from someone was saying, developers are like sharks. If we stop swimming, we die. You've got to always keep learning. There's new stuff. It's changing all the time. You can take what you know now and try and just live in a little box where that's the only thing that matters. But things will always change, and there are people out there that are sort of on the bleeding edge. They might be using techniques that we wouldn't want to use on a production site, but it's those techniques that are cutting edge now and will become standard in a few years. And it's important to get a heads up on that and start using those things.
Is there any Node guys then?
Yeah.
There are a lot of stuff to do with Node actually, but then they went into a bit how it's going to dry out because it's just a hype.
Nice.
In fact, I think
They were Node developers as well.
there was a big speech on it about Node and Scalar, is it? Do you remember?
I think we went to the Google one.
Yeah, we went to
instead.
the other one, but there was one about how
You can see them all online.
Yeah. But I think basically the overview was that it's kind of don't jump on the bandwagon too much because it's just another bandwagon. Like, sorry to say
I can see it fuming inside.
No, it's interesting that people say that. I think me and Ian were talking about this the other day. I mean, the biggest app in the world, the largest app, the biggest resourced app as well, is written in 175,000 lines of JavaScript, and that's all it is. That's where Node came from. And of course, that's Gmail, which has had downtime of about an hour in the last 10 years.
I don't think they were saying it's not good, like, at all.
I just
I
find it
think be
interesting
careful
that
of what-
people think it's like a new technology, when in actual fact people have been using it quite successfully for years.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, shower twats.
Defensive Node developer is defensive.
All the videos and Twitter names and stuff are all on the Bacon website.
Yeah, it's worth just having a look at like any particular area that interests you and just seeing what other stuff the speakers are doing. Because one thing we noticed mainly from like just having a look at the Twitter feeds is, yeah, they're doing this conference, but the week before they do another one the week after, and there'll be a different topic and they'll have other stuff to say. It's worth just having a route around and see if there's anything useful. But anyway, that's it. So yeah, any questions really?
Can you send those slides around?
Absolutely.
Yep, send them out.
I think the video of the entire conference is going to be on the website, I believe. So there's some really interesting talks, though. I definitely recommend. In fact, Dan, check out that Node talk. You'd probably enjoy
It's
that.
going to make me angry.
Well, when they put
I didn't see it personally. It's just that's what I interpreted from the bio
Title.
about it.
when they put them up, could you maybe send a list of links around of the
Yeah,
ones
sure.
you really think are worthwhile?
Well, I'll stick it on an email somewhere and send it out.
Well, it's good that you've got a lot from it and you feel sort of inspired. I think that's obviously the whole point of going down to these kind of things. If you get something out of it, like I say, some of the last things I went down to was going down to Google, and what came out of that was the responsive site. So, we came out of that day just absolutely, sort of buzzing, knowing exactly what we needed to do, and it took a while to do it, but we've done it. So, like I say, if you can take anything out of that weekend and transform it
was
into
really
something
good.
else, then
I think we all really enjoyed it.
then I'm sure you've got everybody's backing and support to do it. So yeah, go for it. And, really good.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Be on YouTube and that.